The rise of the Sumerians. Around 6,000 years ago, an extraordinary people appeared in the Near East. They built the world's first true cities, invented writing, and laid the foundations of civilization. Their gods were powerful, their rulers influential, and their achievements still shape our lives today. These were the Sumerians, the first known civilization in human history. The Sumerians settled in southern Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet the Persian Gulf. This land was rich in fertile soil, but poor in stone, wood, and metals. The rivers flooded unpredictably, often destroying farmland and turning areas into swamps. Despite the challenges, the Sumerians built a thriving culture here. Historians are still debating where the Sumerians came from. Before them, the region was home to the Akkadian and Uruk cultures. The Sumerians appeared around the late 4th millennium BC, and while some believe they were native to Mesopotamia, their unique language suggests otherwise. Place names, farming terms, and city names point to earlier cultures. According to their own myths, they came by sea from a place called Dilmun, modern-day Bahrain, but evidence there is later than their appearance in Mesopotamia. Other theories link them to Anatolia, the Caucasus, Iran, or even South Asia. Their true origins remain unknown. Between the 4th and 3rd millennium BC, small settlements turned into full-scale cities. With better irrigation, people produced more food, which allowed others to specialize as artisans, traders, priests, or soldiers. Each city managed large irrigation systems covering hundreds of square kilometers. Those who organized this work became leaders, and the world's first urban society was born. Dozens of Sumerian city-states emerged, such as Uruk, Kish, and Lagash. Nippur was the religious center, home to the Temple of Enlil, their chief god. Each city-state had an Insi, a high priest and administrator responsible for irrigation, taxes, construction, and religious duties. Decisions were also guided by councils of elders and citizen assemblies. During times of war, a separate leader called the Lugal, big man, was chosen to command. Over time, the Lugal's role became permanent and hereditary, marking the rise of kingship. Power shifted from elected leaders to dynastic monarchies. By the 3rd millennium BC, Sumerian kings ruled over increasingly organized societies. The famous Sumerian king list records these rulers, blending myth and history. The early dynastic period was marked by rivalries and shifting power. Kish was an early center, later overtaken by Uruk. Each city kept its own traditions and gods, but this era shaped the political and cultural institutions later copied by other Mesopotamian peoples. Writing began as a way to keep records of goods. People first used clay tokens to represent items like grain or livestock. Around 3,300 BC in Uruk, scribes started pressing these symbols into clay tablets, which evolved into pictograms. Over time, the system became more abstract and flexible, eventually representing sounds as well as objects. This allowed scribes to record full sentences. They wrote with a reed stylus, leaving wedge-shaped marks called cuneiform. Cuneiform spread across the region, adopted by Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and others. Over 1 million tablets survive today, revealing everyday life, trade, laws, myths, and literature. The Sumerians invented many things we still use. They created the plow, which transformed farming, and the wheel, first used in rituals and later for carts and chariots. They built with arches and columns, creating impressive mud brick structures like ziggurats, massive stepped temple towers. They crafted beautiful jewelry, instruments, and even board games from precious materials. They also developed soap and beer, the latter brewed thick and sweet, and often drunk through straws from large jars. Their most famous contribution to math was the base 60 system. This is why we have 60 minutes in an hour, 360 degrees in a circle, and a 7-day week. They solved complex equations, understood geometry, and kept detailed star charts, predicting eclipses and tracking planets. Astronomy and religion were closely linked, laying the foundation for astrology. They created early legal codes covering trade, marriage, property, and crime. Education was important, especially for the elite. Boys were trained as scribes and learned writing, math, law, religion, and literature. These schools preserved and passed down knowledge for generations. For centuries, the Sumerians coexisted with the Akkadians. In the 24th century BC, Sargon the Great united Mesopotamia under the Akkadian Empire, stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. His grandson Naram-Sin expanded it further and declared himself a living god, a radical idea at the time. But the empire fell to the Gutians, mountain tribes who disrupted irrigation and trade. Cities were abandoned until Utu-Ngal of Uruk defeated the Gutians around 2120 BC. Ur later founded the Third Dynasty of Ur, rebuilding canals, temples, and bureaucracy, and reviving Sumerian traditions. Over time, the centralized system became corrupt, farmlands suffered from salt buildup, and new threats arrived. Amorite tribes moved in from the west, and Elamites invaded from the east. In 2004 BC, Ur was sacked, ending Sumerian political power. Sumerian culture, however, lived on. Its language survived as a scholarly and religious tongue, like Latin in medieval Europe. Its religion, science, and laws influenced the Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and beyond, shaping the roots of modern civilization. If you enjoyed learning about the Sumerians, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from ancient history. Your support helps us bring these civilizations back to life every week.